Today's giveaway, MAPS Strong. By the way, this is one of my favorite MAPS programs that we have. It builds great muscle, great strength, unconventional exercises. It's strongman inspired. In fact, one of our good friends, Robert Oberst, helps us create this program. Anyhow, you can get it for free if you win the following contest. Leave a comment below in the first 24 hours that we drop this episode. Subscribe to this channel and turn on your notifications. If we pick your comment, we'll notify you, and you'll get free access to MAPS Strong. Also, we're running a huge sale on two of our most popular workout programs, MAPS HIIT, which is high-intensity interval training, and MAPS Split, which is a bodybuilding split routine. Both 50% off. Go check them out if you're interested. Head over to mapsfitnessproducts.com and use the code DEC50. So DEC50 with no space for that 50% off discount. All right, here comes the show. All right, here's some interesting facts around nutrition. Many of the negative effects that have been associated with sugar and even fat are really attributed to when you overeat them. In other words, when you look at a diet that is low in calories, even if it's high in sugar, high in certain types of fats, many of the negative effects are actually gone. So you might wonder, well, why then do we attack sugar and fat, and why are they connected to poor health? Well, here's why. Sugar, fat, and salt is another one, together make food hyper palatable. So if you observe populations that consume a lot of one of them or all of them, what you're probably looking at are people that just overconsume in general. All right, so let's talk about this a little bit.
Talking about human behaviors again.
That's it.
Yeah, a better hook, I think, would have been sugar doesn't make you fat, fat doesn't make you fat. Yeah. I think everybody knows that, though, right? I mean, I think that's become when we first started.
I don't know. There's still lots of thoughts out there that sugar is like the cause of all obesity.
Yeah, you know what? And this is what's interesting about it, right? You can find studies that find that diets that are high in sugar cause more problems, inflammation, higher rates of cancer, Alzheimer's. You can find studies that show this with certain types of fats as well. And then there have been studies where they have people eat a high sugar diet, but the calories are low, or a diet that's high in saturated fat, but the calories are low, or like keto diets. When those first came out and became popular, people were eating tons of fat but low calorie, and you saw blood markers improve, health improve, and so everybody's kind of confused. And yet we still see these studies that connect these macronutrients, especially salt, also that connect these macronutrients to poor health. But really, it's about overconsumption, and sugar, fat, and salt. This is very well known. Those three are the three main components that make food hyper palatable. And what we've done in modern times is we've really figured out how to engineer foods with those flavors through either real sources or chemical sources to make them so hyper palatable that you overeat. Yeah. And so here's what's interesting. Sugar consumption has actually dropped over the last maybe decade or so, and yet people are still getting more obese. We're just eating too much. That's the big problem.
It's just really difficult to curb cravings when you have all those flavors to consider. And I mean, there's still a lot of people out there that literally seek after foods based on their flavor alone. And that's really like the amount of thought and effort that put into a lot of the meals that are created, where when you add sugar into the mix, it really does sort of perpetuate this craving, this longing for more sweet things in the diet, which then the calories really start to add up before you know it, and it gets away from you.
So how do you feel about like health and wellness experts that demonize sugar when you see them post about it? What goes through your head right away? Because you have to know, too, that in the context of overconsumption, which is pretty much everyone, I mean, on average, is overconsuming.
That's the biggest point right there.
Yeah.
Right. So do you think it's good or bad or indifferent advice when you see something like that?
Well, two things. First, health and metabolism are way more complex than what I might have just presented. There's a lot of complexities there, right? But the truth is, of course, like what I said earlier, overconsumption really is what results in a lot of these negative effects. Now, demonizing sugar, demonizing fat, demonizing salt, because a lot of it has to do with overconsumption, I think people might get the wrong message. And so they'll say, oh, I got to avoid sugar, but then they'll continue to overconsume and then not understand why their health is poor. Now, I think if you educate people the right way and say, here's why sugar can pose issues. Here's why certain fats can pose issues. Here's why if you combine those things with salt, it can pose issues. It has a lot to do with how much it makes you want to eat, and you avoid other nutrient-dense foods that maybe aren't as palatable, that don't result in you overeating, because you're going for these foods that are so damn enjoyable to eat.
Well, I'm a little conflicted by it because it does immediately sort of address a lot of issues like in people's diets if you start just focusing on removing sugar because of just what follows up with that. So to demonize it, it's kind of like, that's not the whole story,
right?
But it does help at least address kind of like one of the biggest invaders of bad habits that tends to kind of stack the dominoes in that direction.
I'm with you, Justin. I'm conflicted when I see something like this. Like we have our friend like Lane Norton who loves to like just destroy the wellness space that likes to do posts like this. But then I also know from experience, like I'm sure both of you, that if I had a client, there's been many times where all I did was, don't worry about anything else. I just want you to reduce your sugar from this many grams to this many grams, right? So I have them track their food. I kind of see where they're at, and I see that they're grossly over-consuming in general, but primarily a majority of those calories are coming from sugar. And I also know the behaviors around sugar, and so I know instead of getting into all the nuance and science around what exactly is going on with their body inside by them eating over calories or sugars, I can just go, listen, right now on average, you're eating 90 to 110 grams of sugar a day. I want you to cut that below 50. So let's try and manage that below 50. Don't worry about anything else. We'll get there later on. And instantly I can see a huge difference many times just by doing that. So I feel torn when I see that advice coming, because the truth is that advice probably helps a lot of people. But then I also understand where Lane is coming from, because he's right in the context of low calorie. You could eat 500 if you're a maintenance calorie.
Yeah, so long as you eat your essentials, right?
Right. Let's say, well, yeah, even if you weren't doing that, say somebody is 100 pounds overweight. Their maintenance caloric intake, so for their body to stay the same, is let's just say 3,000 calories. They technically could eat 2,000 calories of ice cream every day and live off it, and they would lose weight.
Yeah. But you would see blood markers improve.
That's right. You would actually see all the health markers improve in that time period. But would you guys ever recommend somebody eating 2,000 calories of ice cream?
No, because you cannot remove how foods make you feel, the kind of cravings that they produce. So yes, you would lose weight. Like there was this one scientist that, in order to prove his point, I don't remember his name, but in order to prove his point, he went on a fast food, processed food diet, but kept his calories low, made sure he ate his essentials. In other words, you still have to eat an essential amount of protein and fats, otherwise your body can't function. And he did that, and just to prove to his students, look at my blood markers, look at my triglycerides, I lost weight, blah, blah, blah. But here's the deal. Can most people do that and also feel good, stick to it, not feel like they have tons of cravings? No. So you can't separate the behaviors and how you feel from the physiological, what happens to my body effects, from eating this way. So I think it's all important, but I do think it's important to understand, because here's what happened in the 80s. In the 80s, we were sold, in the 90s even, we were sold that it was fat. Fat is the problem. So what did food manufacturers do? Well, they cut fat out of their processed foods, but now the foods don't taste good. So what did they replace the fat with? Sugar. Yeah. They added lots. So when I was a kid, there were aisles of fat-free, low-fat foods. But in order to make them enjoyable to eat, they increased the sugar. Did obesity drop in the 80s and 90s? Did health improve in the 80s and 90s with the reduction of fat coming out of food? No, it actually kept getting worse.
Well, I have like two thoughts. And this is in the context of like keeping that amount of calories low and being in a deficit, but still like including a lot of sugar in your diet. I'd be curious to see if there's still this sort of degrade in your teeth, if there's like a rotting in your teeth, and also too how that affects your insulin if you're just inundating it constantly, even with sugar, even if it's at a low calorie volume. Yeah,
that's a good question, and like I was saying, it's more complex than what we're talking about. But if you look at the negatives of sugar that are connected to sugar, you do dramatically reduce a lot of them just from cutting overall calories. and this is true for all the demonized stuff. The best studies that I can think of are the ones that show that, and these are the best studies that they've done because they're controlled. Because a lot of these other studies are observational. For example, we noticed that people that eat a lot of sugar are more obese, have higher rates of Alzheimer's, have higher rates of cancer. The problem with that is what I was saying earlier, which is they're probably seeking out more hyperpalatable foods, and they're probably all over-consuming as well. So is it the overconsumption, or is it the sugar? So the best studies that I've seen are the ones where they've taken people, and they're crossover studies, meaning they'll take the groups, cross them over to see if the effects still exist. Mm-hmm. And they'll take these two groups of people, and they'll say, okay, you over here, group A, you have unlimited access to whole natural foods, and group B, you have unlimited access to these heavily processed foods. And they'll even make sure that the macro breakdowns are extremely similar. So the foods all have a similar protein, fat, carbohydrate breakdown. Then they'll observe them. So they're literally in a lab. They can't do anything else, and they're observed. So they count the calories. The scientists are watching. What are they eating? How much they're eating? It's up to them. They can eat as much as they want or as little as they want. Then they'll take the groups, and they'll switch them. Now they'll take B, put them in group A's room, and take A and put them in group B's room. So it's an excellent study. Yeah. And they find, on average, people consume 600 more calories a day when they have access to heavily processed foods. So you eat 600 calories more than you're eating or over your surplus. Now you're going to store body fat, and then you're going to get a lot of the negative effects associated with that. And that's from heavily processed foods. And remember, heavily processed foods are foods that food scientists have literally engineered to be as palatable as possible. So it's like comparing an apple versus like apple flavored candy, right? It's grapes versus grape candy. Like I can eat so many apples, but I bet you I would overeat apple flavored Apple Jacks or candy far more because they've added things to just really tip it over the scale of hyperpalatability, which causes you to overeat. So we're looking at the wrong things, but that doesn't mean we still shouldn't look at those things. So we should still look at sugars, some kind of fats, and salt, but not because each of them are evil, but rather what's the relationship with those in overeating, and then let's educate people on this and help them, create behaviors around over-consuming.
The truth is, though, that people don't necessarily they may say they want to be educated, but nobody wants to go through the effort of learning. It's like they want the quick, just tell me, can I have sugar or can I not have sugar?
Tell me, I'll follow it.
Yes or no.
Mindlessly.
It's just, they want the 15-second clip.
Yeah, the trick is to figure out what's the easier answer. It's obviously going to be very complex. In my experience, the best results I ever got with people was where I just simply told them to try to avoid heavily processed foods and then go ahead and eat normally. And that would typically result in, now you're not going to get shredded doing that. When you start to get shredded, you have to count calories and all that stuff. But people would get to a relatively normal body weight if they followed that advice. That was the easiest one for me. I don't know. What about you guys?
I did the same thing. But I also, even the sugar one that I said, I had a lot of success with that. I had a lot of clients that ate well over 80, 90 plus grams of sugar, and not coming mostly from fruit, mostly coming from processed foods, and just giving them a number that I wanted them to manage under. And I knew that would indirectly affect calories, just like the staying away from the processed foods does the same thing. We're not telling them to count calories or reduce their calories, but we know inevitably what ends up happening because we know the behaviors around those types of foods. So I had a lot of success with just limiting people from eating that much.
Yeah, and just adding more fibrous type foods and green leafy type vegetables in there, like just adding that in then starts to turn and change the palate a bit.
Well, that's what naturally happens.
And protein.
And then it follows suit to that. And then just trying your best not to drink calories, because it happens like a lot of my clients didn't realize how many calories they were consuming so quickly just by drinking them.
Hundreds, sometimes thousands. So
yeah,
that was 1,000 calories of soda.
I don't know about you guys, but we just, so in the, let's see here, what are we, December something, right? So we're in the first week or so of December, and I don't think I've made 3 days in a row since Halloween that I haven't had some sort of candy, pie, cake, ice cream, and since it's been introduced. Before Halloween, I couldn't tell you the last time that I had any of those things. Since Halloween, those things have made their way into my diet so often that I don't think I've strung even 3 days of one of those not being in the diet.
Yeah.
Same
and
here.
I know that it's available now. It's in my house. I know that I've opened up. I broke the seal. You know what I'm saying? I've had it now, and now at night I find myself craving
it
that.
creates a feeling that is hard to resist. The best example I can think for myself is this, right? If you put a bowl of plain peeled boiled potatoes in front of me, I am not going to overeat them. But if you slice them, fry them, cover them in salt, by the way, adding calories, so you're making them more calorically dense, I'll overeat the hell out of them because it does something to my brain that makes me want to continue eating past the point of being uncomfortable. This is also, by the way, why artificial sweeteners have not done anything to solve the obesity epidemic. Artificial sweeteners are sweet, but they don't have calories. There are no studies that are not
outrageously sweet.
There are no obsolete. So studies will have people live their daily lives, replace sugar with artificial sweeteners, and nobody loses weight. It's not because they didn't reduce calories. You can very easily reduce calories with artificial sweeteners, but the problem was they would reduce the calories by having these artificial sweeteners, but then because they're so palatable and because they're not coming with calories, your body actually makes you want more food. They eat more. So they make up the difference even though they've cut out the sugar from their sodas. This is why it's a terrible, for most, unless you're controlling and counting every macronutrient, which nobody does, it doesn't result in weight loss for anybody.
Now, do you think the cravings, the overeating, would you attribute that to chemically what's happening inside of my body more, or that it's attached to some old behavior more? Which one do you, because I look at like Katrina, she doesn't have the same problem.
Yeah.
She can literally, we can have a candy bar in the freezer or something, and she could break a piece off of it for the next 6 months. Like that would never happen, especially one that I like. Or maybe it was if one I don't like, I would even do that. But if it was something that
Like an Almond Joy?
yeah, right, if it's something I'm not really into, that maybe. But if it's something that I like,
I love
like
payday.
same thing with like a little pint of ice cream.
Yeah.
She could get it out. She could take 2 or 3 bites, put it back. That thing will last the whole damn year in there. If it's in my if I open it, it's gone. It's done. I
think it's both. I think it's all of the above. It's so complex. And here's the problem. The problem is, in all of human history, we've never been presented with this problem where we have all the food, all the potential flavor combinations, all available, all cheap, and all fast.
Yeah, 24 hours.
So here's the problem. We are now in a position where, and dare I say, the solution is like you almost have to go on a spiritual journey, literally, to create this different relationship to food. In the past, you didn't. There wasn't an issue because I could want to eat all the food I want, just don't have it. So the issue is I got to find it. Now it's everywhere. It's cheap. It doesn't matter. Nobody starves in Western civilizations, modern ones at least. The obesity kills way more people. So now it's almost like I have to develop this relationship with food where it's like abstinence, discipline, valuing food for lots of its different value, developing balance. And you never had to do that before. So I think it's both, Adam. I think it's the behaviors, how you connect to food. When I'm stressed, ever since I was a kid, I would eat food. Now when I'm stressed as an adult, this is my coping mechanism. Or, it helps me forget things. Or when I'm sad, or every time I watch a movie, this is how the types of foods I like to eat, or this is how I connect with people. Or I never learned to enjoy food for its other values aside from its palatability. Like, it's a completely different problem, and it's very complex.
I 100% believe or know that it's both. The question I think I have is which one is more powerful, because back to my point with like Katrina is like it doesn't seem to affect her the same way. Now I tied mine back to my childhood. I've told you guys this before that there's always 4 to 5 of us kids in the house at all times. We didn't have a lot of stuff as far as like we didn't get tons of treats. So it was a big deal if mom came home with a quart of ice cream. It would be a big deal if we had one thing of Oreos, and you got 5 kids and 2 adults.
And you're all fighting for it.
Yeah, we're all fighting for it. And so, I knew that if I went to get it, I would over consume it because I knew that it was probably the only time I'd get it. Like one thing of Oreos, you got 7 people eating out of it.
So you learned to binge.
Yeah, I knew that I couldn't just have 2 and then come back 3 days later, because 3 days later it would be gone for sure. So when I went in to get it, I got to get the serving size that I want, because I'm not going to. And so it created these habits and behaviors. Now, what I don't know is, did those habits, behaviors also do something chemically inside me that made me even more attracted or addicted to the foods?
Which one should you focus on? nutrition, I think would be the way to ask your question. And I think it's behaviors all the way. I think the physiology, your physiology also affects your behaviors, but your behaviors really affect your physiology. And your behaviors are the relationship you have with your physiology. So let's say you're somebody that, let's say you're one of those people that says, "Oh, my blood sugar drops, and I don't, I need to eat sugar." By the way, this is not true for most people. Most people who say this isn't true. There's very few people this actually happens to. But let's say this is you, and you think, if I don't eat, oh my God, I need to eat some sugar. Your relationship with that might be to eat some fruit, or it might be I eat some candy or I overeat, right? So I think it's the behaviors that, if you had to focus on anything, it would be that. I think that's the biggest, in my experience at least, that's where I've had the most success.
Well, it's the most controllable, right? Once it's ingested, I can't do anything about what's happening inside of me chemically. It is what it is.
And also,
but I can make the decision whether I put it in my house or if I do have more than one bite. And so, I actually would do things where I've tested that, and there's times like if I go to the store and I go, hey, I'm going to intentionally buy this treat that I normally would, and then I'm also going to make sure that I don't eat more than one or two at a time. I've been able to do it, but it just takes so much effort. If it's like what's happened to me right now is all these treats have landed in my house without really me actively making that decision. Like if I go grocery shopping and I go, you know what, it's been a long time since I've had some ice cream. I'm going to get myself one little pint, and when I get it, I'm just going to, I'll wait till a really hard workout day before I have it, or I'll chip away at it slowly. If I do that with that intention, I have better success with it. But if it ends up like what's happened right now, where it's like, here, take this extra red velvet cake. Oh, here's this pie, and I open the refrigerator and I didn't even know how it got there, and then my stomach's already craving something. That's why I opened it to look for it. Boy, it's hard for me, and I'm aware of that. So I can't imagine how many people that are not that self-aware on how easily this sneaks up on
my
them.
favorite tip for that, because you just said it right there. You're aware. You're aware enough to know what you need to do for yourself and what's going to be the challenge. That's the key. I think the key is to become aware. And then if you are aware that you have a challenge with a particular food or type of food, what I would always recommend, and this was very effective, and I do this for myself even, is you just create a barrier between yourself and the impulse. Because it's an impulse is literally acting without thinking, right? Or acting in a less aware state of mind. That's what makes it an impulse. So what you do is you make a barrier. So what I would do with myself, and again, I would recommend clients do this as well, and it works so well, is I'd say, okay, Mrs. Johnson, if you have chocolate in the house, you know what a struggle it is. It's hard for you to just have one piece. You end up eating the whole box. Here's what I want you to do. I don't want you to never eat chocolate again or tell yourself you can't eat chocolate, because that typically results in some kind of a rebound where when you are exposed, then you go crazy. So what I would tell her is I'd say, you can have chocolate, but you have to drive to the grocery store, and you can only buy yourself a single serving. So you can eat it. If you really want it, you got to get in the car, drive to the grocery store, and then buy a single serving. Now, what does that do? What it does is it creates space between you and the impulse, which allows for, doesn't guarantee, but it allows for awareness to step in. So now as I'm putting my shoes on, I'm getting in the car, now I'm thinking like, do I really want this? I probably don't. Like, why am I doing this? I'm grabbing whatever, whatever. Or sometimes you get it. But oftentimes that awareness, that space allows awareness to jump in, and then it stops the impulse. So that's a strategy that I would use all the time. I use that for myself. So like potato chips, they're never in my house. But does that mean I won't eat them? No. If I really want them, I drive to the store and I grab myself.
If I eat too much chocolate, I just like make myself wear a chocolate mustache for a few days. Just
What?
Make sure, like everybody knows.
They call that the dirty Sanchez, don't they?
Oh,
it is.
Gross.
Terrible.
Hey, talking about food and driving
addicts.
places. I was, we were on Instacart yesterday or the day before yesterday, and I saw Butcher Box on there.
How?
Did you guys know that?
How does that work?
So I don't even know. Like literally, I just saw this yesterday, or the day before, and I sent an email out to Butcher Box to find out more details about this. But I'm assuming they have like an a la carte option that you can go through them. I don't know how this works.
Well, I know that they're connected to local like farms and butchers.
Are they?
Well, yeah. So I'm pretty sure. So I think depending on the area that you order your food, they're connected to local people with grass.
Did you know this, Doug?
Grass finished. If I'm not
I didn't
mistaken.
know it. I'm looking at it right now, though.
Yeah, see if you can do a little bit of homework.
Butcher Box is crushing right now.
Are they?
Because of the price.
Yeah, see, look at it right
yeah,
there.
there you go. Look at that.
Well, they've been able to keep their pricing pretty consistent.
Well,
right?
yeah, because prices are getting so inflated, especially meats like pork.
Yeah.
And Butcher Box, if you sign up for them, right, you pay your flat rate for your box, and it's stayed the same. They've kept all the prices pretty damn good, and I think it's because they have less middlemen, right? So they don't have to. If one raises their price, it doesn't affect them because they have less steps in between. You know?
This is really interesting to me because I mean, as of right now, they're a subscription based model.
Is that not subscription then?
No, I don't think so.
Right through Instacart.
That's one time, right, Doug?
Yeah, it looks like a one-time purchase. I'm guessing, and I don't know this for sure, it really depends on your location too.
Of course.
Where their supply is coming from. So, for example, in the Bay Area, it's a bigger population. Maybe it's available there, but maybe not way out in.
I mean,
I wonder if this is a way for them to sort of fish out there and be like, "Hey, try our meat, then it'll bring you back."
Exactly what I thought of. Because obviously, business-wise, it wouldn't be ideal for us. They're not going through Mind Pump or anything like that, so it's not like we're getting credit for the people.
Yeah, but you're not going to get the free. What did we free bacon for?
Yeah, so it's not. I'm sure it's not as good of a deal as their membership, but. What a great way for somebody who's been like listening to the show going like, I've been thinking about it, but I don't know if I'm going to like it or what that you can do an a la carte version of it, try it out, make sure it's something that you like before you sign up for their subscription.
Oh my God, speaking of health, one of the best, most hilarious videos I've ever seen in my entire life I saw recently. Dana White.
Oh, I saw his interview.
Press conference.
Dr. Joe Rogan.
Bro, he got COVID. And here's what I love.
So did his wife, his kids, they all got
Here's
it.
what I love about people like Dana White, okay? I don't know the guy, so I don't know if he's a good guy or not, but here's what I love about him. He literally will say whatever. He doesn't care what's unpopular, popular.
Yeah.
And he's obviously, messing with people, but he's like, I called up Rogan, went on his protocol, and I feel like a champion 3 days later. I talked to
he
Dr.
literally
Rogan.
said Dr. Rogan is what he said.
Yeah,
That is ruffling
of
some
course,
feathers.
that triggered so many people for sure.
Oh my God. Because it was
so
Rogan.
did Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers
called him. Because what he did is he got people to do like a bunch of vitamin and nutrient drips, ivermectin, which everybody focused on, but it was human grade prescribed to them. And then the monoclonal antibodies, which have the research, right? The monoclonal antibodies have all the research showing how effective they are. But the fact that they're doing this, and what makes me laugh is, remember when CNN went after Rogan? I kept saying he took a horse dewormer, and even after he's like, listen, my doctor prescribed it. It's human grade. It's been prescribed to billions of people. Like, stop calling it that. They kept doubling down.
Just keep pushing that button.
And he's just going after CNN. And now to have people like Dana, they must be like,
their heads are spinning.
Oh, they probably had in their boardroom, all right, how can we take down Joe? You can't. His audience is 10 times bigger than yours. So,
well, speaking of the fight games, you guys see what is going on with Jake Paul? So Jake Paul had finally got Tyson Fury, right? So he got one of the Fury brothers who's like, or is Tyson is I always forget which brother's which, right? Which one's pull up the Fury brothers and remind me which one's
I think it's his other, so Tyson Fury's brother, his younger brother?
Yeah, it's his younger brother, right? The one that's obviously not as good of a fighter as he is. He was supposed to fight, I think, on December 18th against Jake, and I guess he backed out. I don't know what health issues, what it was, but I mean, Jake Paul, of course, did a video for that talking shit like it was, he was scared is why he backed out. But Woodley stepped up to take it out. Tommy, that's what it is.
Okay.
Yeah, Tommy.
You know what I've been reading? I've been reading that there's like theories, and somebody came out and said that a rumor or whatever that Paul is having these fighters sign contracts saying that they will back down if they start to like hurt him or knock him out.
What?
Yes. So so what was the last fight he did? Remember when the guy hit him against the ropes, but then he came back? Somebody came out and said, he made him sign a contract saying that because if you watch it, it looks like Woodley loses the killer instinct.
That's not true.
But
that's got to be a bullshit.
Why not?
These are sanctioned fights, but they're not under the same rules as the rest of the
but how do you even?
leagues.
Okay, so you're saying that.
So who knows what he's actually putting
Jake
in there?
Jake Paul had him right in the contract that if I'm about to get hurt, you back off?
Yes. So in other words, let's say you and I are about to fight, and you're a pro fighter, and if you fight me, I'm going to guarantee you're going to make $5 million because these guys are making big money.
Yeah.
And he says, and here's an NDA. You can't let anybody know this. We'll sue the shit out of you. And in there it says that you'll spar with me, and you'll notice if you start to hurt me, you'll back down. The idea is to make it an exciting fight.
So the reason why I don't believe that is because he just came out and said that in the contract he's giving Woodley $500,000 if he can knock him out. So how do you do both those? How do you say if I'm about to hurt?
Because you can
that's
tell
publicity.
You can talk about the part of the contract you want people to know, but not the other part.
Right.
You don't know if he's going to make more.
That makes him look good.
That doesn't make sense though. Okay, you can knock me out, but you can't hurt me?
No.
How do you
maybe he's telling everybody in the contract that he'll get $500,000.
He's advertising it to hype the fight.
But what he's not saying is, well, he's going to make more money if he doesn't. We don't know that. And by the way, it's not the first time the fight sport has been marred by this kind of shit. Let's be honest.
Please.
It's the most.
Yeah, dude.
It's been
especially
one of the most,
boxing.
Yeah, I think you guys be watching too much of your conspiracy theory stuff. That's what I think. That's
Listen, my conspiracies are all around Ghislaine Maxwell. That's where I'm at.
Hey, these days the conspiracy theorists are freaking.
They're killing.
They're all right.
Did you see that meme? What is it? Conspiracy. It was like a brain. What does a conspiracy theory look like right now? And it was just like a brain. That's all it was. Just
like a normal operating brain.
Yeah, I just think that's just ridiculous on how. Because you got to think it's a contract. So you're saying that he could potentially lose it if they hurt him or went after him. So how do they decide whether that was too much or not? Like who says what he did last time to him wasn't too much? Like you know what I'm saying? What would nullify the contract?
I have no idea.
Yeah,
this was a rumor, but here's my point with it. My point with it is entirely plausible. Because if you and I sign a contract, and before we sign the contract, you can't disclose this to anybody or I'll sue the shit out of you.
Yeah.
And you're going to make a ton of money while we're doing this, and it's fun, it's exhibition, who cares? I could see some people being like, okay, I'll go in. Now, here's where I'm on your side, Adam. Does a fighter's pride matter more to them? Like, if I was a pro fighter fighting some YouTube person,
right,
I'd be like, I don't give a shit how much money you offer me. Like, I'm not gonna let you beat me in front of. But then again, fighters have done it in the past, and it's been proven.
Well, yeah, and so far right now, he's fighting people who are,
they're already lost. They've lost their.
And you said, okay, so you're the one that watched the Woodley fight last time, right?
I did. I watched both of his fights, the last two. Yeah.
Now, how do you think he would fare the second time around? Now that Woodley sort of has a good feel for him.
So again, he's going to get my money. Because I think Woodley almost had him. I thought Woodley
didn't it look like he like kind of laid off?
See, I didn't think so. I watched the fight. I didn't feel like Woodley. I think the first couple rounds, I thought that Woodley really was kind of playing cat and mouse a little bit, maybe feeling him out, was being timid. And then as the rounds went on, I think Woodley started to build confidence, and then it got really scary, I thought, for a little bit there for Jake. But then there was never a part in it where I thought somebody was throwing a fight or doing anything like that. It didn't look, and I thought Woodley almost had him. So the second go around, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting if Woodley was truly training this entire time, because he's taking this fight on a short notice. Yeah. It's December 18th, and it was supposed to be
interesting because I've heard so many different people he's been trying to get into the ring with him, and I heard Mike Tyson was one that he was trying to entertain to bring in, and Tyson was all about it, and then I didn't hear much. Maybe he got cold feet about that idea.
Yeah, that would be interesting to me. Two things. First, Tyson's a monster, but he's also old.
He's old, but he's still a killer.
Oh, he's still a killer, but man, if I saw Tyson get knocked out by a younger, even if it was Jake Paul, that would break my heart.
It would.
Yeah, I would hate that. That would devastate me. It's Tyson.
I wouldn't want to see that at all.
By the way, every once in a while, I'll go on YouTube and find old videos of Tyson when he was 17, 18. Have you ever seen him when he was a kid?
Just diesel, dude.
He's a child.
Jacked.
He's a year older than my son, and you watch these videos of him fighting.
Yeah.
Terrifying.
Yeah.
It's absolutely terrifying. What he could. Speaking of old videos, you know what I did also this weekend is I looked up old workout and bodybuilding motivational videos from the 80s and the 70s. Dude, especially the 70s. You know what's so cool about that era? When these guys and people were working out, there was, first off, they were barefoot, shirts off, whatever. There's no music playing. They would go into the gym, and imagine this. You're working out in a gym, there's no music. All you hear is grunting, clanging, counting. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's a serious work environment if you think about it. I mean, how kind of
You got to think
different,
that,
right?
I bet.
Totally different.
I wonder who introduced like music playing over like the loudspeaker, like commercial gym. Like, what was the first commercial gym to do that? Because I'm sure most gyms looked like the Venice Beach gym, where they were kind of grungy and there was no music and there were only maybe 20 people in there at most. Like, I wonder who was the first to kind of introduce like this kind of commercial
like
style.
LA Fitness or Nautilus.
Well,
or,
so in the 80s is when that started happening a little bit. From my understanding, I may be wrong, but I know that bodybuilders would bring a boombox to the gym sometimes and listen to music and do their thing, and that kind of started. But back in the 70s, there was nothing. You're just working out. You're going to work. I was watching some old videos, and what I like to do is place myself in there. And I'm like, man, what would that be like to walk into a gym?
it's awkward, dude.
And I don't know, man. I think I'd be hyped as hell to work out in an
Just
environment.
hearing people breathing and clanging and grunting. I don't know, dude. I'd be like, where am I? Am I in a bathhouse? Or, what's happening in here? You know?
Justin's like, I'm getting weird feelings.
Yeah, I was like,
I can't.
Am I in the right
Hey,
place?
speaking of health and stuff like that, so the study came out on Viagra, which is
great transition.
very fascinating.
Yeah.
They connected Viagra to a massive reduction in Alzheimer's.
Really?
Yes. Now here's the funny thing.
What?
Let's see if you guys get.
I have some other connections, but
No, and now here's the funny thing.
okay.
The study literally says Viagra
Just brand new
connected to a
activity.
69% reduction in Alzheimer's. I'm like 69%.
69, all right.
Is this a joke?
Yeah.
No, but really, the study showed that there was a huge reduction in Alzheimer's. They think it has to do with how it improves blood flow. It's also been connected to reductions in stroke.
Right.
Is it that, or is it that people who are using Viagra are having more sex? Maybe that
so
could
I was
be.
just going to say, I wonder if you could connect something to just having more sex to that.
Or more quality of life.
Yeah, if you're somebody who was either never having sex or rarely having sex in your 60s, then all of a sudden you're having sex frequently, I'm sure there's some health benefits to that.
I would agree.
Regardless if Viagra is assisting you to have that sex or not, I would think that the sex would have some positive benefits to you health-wise.
Now, I would agree, but I also remember reading a study that showed that the Viagra use was connected to an increase in divorce among older couples.
Oh, yeah.
So like men and women in their 60s and 70s, once they're married after 20, 30 years, the divorce rate goes way down. They usually don't divorce.
Get a little more promiscuous at the retirement.
Yeah, I
home.
read this article that said that like all of a sudden, the wives are like, cool, my husband's not coming after me anymore.
Yeah.
It's all good. We're just going to hang out. And then all of a sudden he's like, hey, babe,
Yeah.
I'm back.
Yeah.
And she's
I was
like,
just outside on the rocking chair and started to feel some things happen.
and she's like, oh, hell no, you're not. So I don't know. I will say this. I'm going to make this prediction right now, just from everything I'm reading on these PDE5 inhibitors. I think that these are going to be some of the most widely prescribed drugs in the future, not just for erectile dysfunction, but for health, for strokes, for heart health, and all that stuff, just from what I'm reading. It's really interesting.
that Viagra will be?
PDE5 inhibitors, maybe Viagra could be the other ones, but that class of drugs, they're connecting to all these like improvements in health, which I think is really interesting.
That is interesting.
Yeah, very
Wait, what was
fascinating.
the company that we talked about for a little bit? We had them. They paid for a couple commercials with us.
Roman?
No,
Blue Chew.
Blue Chew.
Blue Chew. They're exploding right now too. I hear them on the radio all the time. They're
Yep.
all over the place.
Yep.
And they're making it easier and easier to get, right? So it used to be really hard to get a hold of stuff like that.
That's what I'm saying. I think it's they're going to start to prescribe it more and more because of these. There was even, one of the articles I read about strokes was this researcher said, yeah, we think that this drug is going to be widely prescribed just to prevent strokes in people. And then I read another article in relation to COVID
Increased strokes.
that they were saying more strokes, less strokes.
Yeah.
They were saying that this could be they were investigating it as a potential treatment for COVID to prevent some of the vascular damage that COVID can cause in a lot of people. Which is now, again, speaking of health, I got some stats on physical therapy, the physical therapy industry. Somebody sent me this morning. Really fascinating. Trip off this, right? Did you guys know the physical therapy industry in the U.S. right now is worth $33 billion?
Just physical therapy.
Wow.
Just physical therapy. It's projected to grow 18% by the year 2029. So however big it is now, we're looking at consistent growth year over year. Check this out. Physical therapy can lower patient treatment costs by 72%.
What?
Yes. So insurance, this is why Luna, for example, even exists and why insurance companies love them. Because if you're an insurance company, you want to lower your cost. Physical therapy reduces the costs of other treatments by 72%.
Now, what do you think? Why the growth? Why the huge jump? Do you think it's just because of the age of
baby boomers finally kind of coming to that population needing
that would be
attention
my
the
guess.
most,
That's
or-
part of it. And I think the other part of it is the understanding and acceptance that movement and correctional exercise can solve a lot of pain and a lot of issues. Whereas before it might have been like surgery, painkillers,
Right.
don't do that movement anymore. Now we're sitting
preventative health measures.
Yeah,
right? So,
yeah.
again, keeping the body functioning, moving, keeps you healthy and out of the doctor's office.
Speaking of Luna, by the way, did you know they have a like a calculator on there for practitioners?
No.
So for people who
to
know,
tell them how much they make if they want to. Oh yeah. Like
yes. So for people that know, right?
I did see that.
Luna's a company that is connecting people to physical therapists. They come right to your house. So you don't have to go to a clinic or anything like that. Your insurance covers it. You don't have to go through your primary care physician. And the therapists make more money. There's less paperwork. It's like a total industry
Win-win-win.
disrupting technology and company. But what they're in constant need of more physical therapists. They have a calculator on there for a PT who can figure out how much they can make through either moonlighting with Luna or going full time. Doug, I know you have it up. Is there any other information that I'm missing
just
out?
go to the getluna.com, and then at the top of the page there's a link for therapists. Click on that, and then there's a little box that you click on that calculates how much you can earn.
Yeah.
Well, of all the companies that we're invested in, it's the one that I think unanimously that we all agree has the most potential.
Oh,
I mean,
huge.
rarely do you see something that disrupts the space this much where like everybody wins, right? Normally, like a new business comes into town like this, and there's somebody might be making out or one or two parties, but it's like
Patient, physical therapists, insurance companies. Like how in the
it's
hell?
better for all three of them. And if there's a situation where all three, because you gotta think like, if it wasn't better for insurance companies, they're gonna put a halt on that. That's not gonna happen, right? Or if it's not very good for the doctors and stuff, they're gonna put a halt on this. They're not gonna do it. But when it benefits everybody and everybody wins, that's why it was like a no brainer.
Yeah.
Well, it was interesting. I mean, I did kind of have a bit of a theory with the lockdowns and everything coming back into playing like really strenuous sports and athletes. I've noticed quite an uptick in injuries.
Because they took time off. And then they went back?
From all the time off and people not properly, keeping their body, their joints and everything else like healthy and
The NFL speculated on that.
yeah.
Did they really?
Yeah, because of this, the season was off. They also speculated that with the NBA because they had that short season, then ran back another season without the normal off time that they would. That there was this uptick in injuries and stuff because of that. So a lot of players were not practicing as much as they were, and then they ran because the season got cut short because of the beginning of COVID, and then it got pushed back a little bit, which made it closer to the new season that was coming around. And because that shortened up their training window to prepare for the season,
They didn't get as strong they didn't get as protective as they should have been.
Well, so I think, in my personal opinion, is that estimate of how much it's going to grow by 2029, I think is way low. Because there's two markets that I see that are going to explode for physical therapy. One is the younger market, because kids are so less active. They're not playing outside like they used to. You're seeing kids now with back pain and neck pain and shoulder pain and carpal tunnel, which you never saw in children before. And then the second market that I think would benefit tremendously from physical therapy are expecting mothers or people who want to have children and then have children and then post pregnancy, right? Postpartum. Like it is not standard of care. If you're somebody that has a baby, it is not standard of care for them to say, you just had your baby, you need to go through 6 weeks of physical therapy. I mean, they'll give it to you if you're like, I have some issues with, my...
Yeah, that is crazy they don't prescribe that.
No, and it should be.
Yeah.
I can't think of a more valuable thing to work on pelvic floor.
A traumatic experience for the body.
Yeah, core control. And, there's all kinds of hip pain and pelvic floor, especially pelvic floor issues that women will get after having a baby. Or C-section, right? What that does to the core. And, I can't connect to it. But they don't know. Like, a lot of people don't know what's going on. I think it should be standard of care. I think after you have a baby, it should be like traditional standard of care that you go, when you're ready, you go get physical therapy for 6 weeks. And I think it would make such a tremendous impact. And I feel like that market's about to explode.
I mean, it's not a bad bet. I mean, it needed to be more accessible like this.
Exactly.
Now. I mean,
That was my
before,
point.
no way. But with this, there's
Exactly.
huge potential. in
Yeah,
that.
you're a new mom. You're not going to go drive to a clinic. when you're for 6 weeks postpartum. You're just not going to do that. But if they come to your house, then yeah, absolutely, I would do something like that. So
talking about more crazy stuff and also humbling. Seeing the people share the Spotify wrap-ups this year was crazy.
Awesome.
Dude. Yeah, such
we see someone that listened to like 58,000.
So that was the winner. The winner was 58,000 something minutes, which I don't know how many episodes that
Isn't it crazy that like Apple doesn't put that kind of effort into podcast? Like Spotify does really cool things like that to like help kind of promote everybody and show.
That's because their whole business model is built around driving more subscribers and more listeners. Where Apple, it's the podcasting space is like is a total afterthought.
Yeah,
they make so much more money everywhere else with phones and computers and all the other stuff that the whole podcasting feature is such an afterthought, where Spotify, their whole model is around digital streaming.
Yeah.
So
plus Apple could buy Spotify later.
Yeah, right.
I mean, they could, right?
No, totally. Speaking of that, so check this out. So part of why, do you know why Spotify does that wrap up like at the end of the year every year?
Is it because they know people will share?
Yeah. And guess what it does to the numbers?
It must crush.
21% increase in download traffic for them.
Wow.
No way.
Just because people are sharing it, which Doug and I were talking before, because I shared this with Doug before we got on air. I actually think, Sal, that has a big reason why we had this record week we just had. So we had a record week in downloads for us. Is because we just had all those that we just shared. And if Spotify sees a 21% increase in their downloads, and we probably had 100 people share their wrap-ups, and Mind Pump was their number one, and they had listened to tens of thousands of minutes of Mind Pump, and I think all the people that are seeing that in everybody's stories, I bet that actually had an impact on us even.
That's an interesting theory. You know what, to the point of like Apple acquiring Spotify, I don't think they would. And the reason being is what happened with them with Beats by Dre. And the literal reason why they even bought into it wasn't because of the headphones. It was because of the streaming side of it that they were developing. And that they tried to
I don't
buy
think
into.
Apple would do that.
And so but they already, Apple streaming is not a thing. I mean, unless somebody like out there like argues it and knows a bunch of people that use that feature, I don't.
No, very few people.
Yeah.
I know a couple people that do, but it's very limited in comparison to like Spotify. I mean, even like iHeartRadio is making a run for like that.
I mean, if you're the future of podcast obviously is huge. It's the way people are going to be consuming most of their talk media, which is a huge market to begin with. It's still, by the way, still more people listen to talk radio through the radio than through podcasting, but it's changing very rapidly. You have to have analytics. You have to provide people with analytics and metrics. Spotify does that. Apple does not.
Yep.
And if you're building a podcast and you're a host and you have a show, you want analytics. So I don't know how long Apple's going to get away with that. Right now, they still are the dominant.
I don't know. It's a mystery to me.
So do you guys think it's smart? Do you think it's dumb? What do you think?
What Spotify?
No. What Apple is doing by not doing anything about
just
it.
not doing anything and waiting for the market to really.
Yeah, what's your thought?
You know what's funny is I think it's dumb, but
they're waiting for it to prove itself.
And also, and in terms of all the money they make from the other stuff that they do, it's probably not, right? They're probably looking at everything and say, well, we can invest money here.
My thought is like their head's so far in the clouds with trying to create a car and do all this other shit that like nobody needs, where this is something that's like right in front of them. I think they just are neglecting it.
I mean, what's Doug? Look up the estimated revenue from podcasts right now. I think it's smart, and I think it's
peanuts compared.
I think it's no different than the thing that we've experienced in our small little bubble in our world of scaling a company to the size that we have right now. And what do we say is one of the biggest challenges is saying no.
Yeah,
is there's opportunities to do so many different things, and it really easily you can get distracted by going left, then right, then back this way and that way. Where
all of podcast advertising,
nothing, 800, not even $1 billion,
not even $1 billion. That's like peanuts to Apple.
That's right. So my theory is it's really smart because they're going to go ahead and let all of these guys fight over it,
find the top dog, reverse engineer it, or steal it, or buy them.
That's right.
Yeah.
Now I think at some point it's going to be something they're going to want to look at.
Yeah.
But right now,
maybe I bet. So you talked about this also, Sal, the other day off air. We were talking about one of the things that you wanted to do, and we all agreed is. Because we are getting our hands in so many different things that we should sit down, have a meeting, and come up with rules. What are going to be our rules on do we invest in this company or not? That way we don't get distracted every time something falls.
Get excited.
Right. So it doesn't check all the boxes, move along, just keep going.
Right.
I mean, don't you think a company like Apple has the same thing too?
Of course.
We don't even fuck with anything until it becomes billion. Unless it's $1 billion space that we can come in and disrupt. I don't care how cool it is, how fast it's growing, how neat it is. If it's not even $1 billion, we're not going to waste our time going over there. That would be my guess.
So they saw Netflix just finally get to that billion mark, and they're like, "Oh shit, okay, now we got to create this whole streaming service," and then they did it.
Yeah, it's like they'll let other people prove the market valuability, and then they'll jump in with all their cash and their power.
Yeah, makes sense.
And then they'll do so. Speaking of cool technology, I have to show you guys this because I think it's Doug. I just texted it to the group. If you could pull this up, they're going to build, or there's a concept that they're thinking about building. It's the first kinetic energy launch machine that will be launching things into space.
Stop it.
That's kinetic energy.
Do you know what that means?
Yeah, but how they build?
They're going to literally
kinetic
throw
energy?
something into space. There's no propellants or anything.
Wait.
Okay, watch.
Isn't it just like you're coiling something?
No.
So if you're
watch this video, Doug. Start in the beginning. So that thing right there spins so fast, and then what it does is at the right moment it launches the rocket. Look at this.
Hey, who signs up to do that?
Look at this. No, it's not people. It's going to be launching satellites.
Oh, okay.
So and then the boosters don't kick in until it gets into low orbit. In which case you need way less.
So does
fuel.
that take less energy to create?
Of course.
Well, the kinetic energy, like cylinder.
Yeah, because one of the problems with launching shit is, you know how much like gas or
resources it takes just to get it off the ground.
So much energy is required to launch a rocket into space.
Not to mention that's probably the highest risk part of launching a rocket.
Well, you can't put astronauts in there though.
No.
Their brains will explode.
You imagine that? Oh! But I mean, how cool!
It's like teacups from hell.
But
does
how
it
cool,
say
right?
how much? Does it say how much G-force it creates? It's got to be something.
No, it doesn't say.
Oh my god, it must be like insane, dude.
No. But what it does, it literally it spins so fast and it launches it into low orbit, and then once it hits low orbit, it'll turn on its boosters.
So who's the company who's doing this? It says SpinLaunch, but who owns this company?
I have no idea. I thought it was just so cool. I was watching this and I was like, what?
Yeah, where did you see this?
It just showed up.
Oh my god,
look
at that. Yeah, you ain't putting a person in that.
No, hell no.
And then look with high precision. Look at this example though. That's so sick. And it literally just and it's in it. Oh, so it's in a vacuum. So it's in a vacuum and it only opens.
No friction.
No friction.
No friction, just straight
look
out.
it's just throwing a rocket into space. That's like a Superman movie, you know, when he throws shit into space.
Yeah, no, that's wild.
How rad is
that would be a great one for this whole like hysteria over trying to deal with meteors and things coming, right?
Yeah.
So they're already I know like Elon Musk and people are already trying to address this.
So two things.
Problem.
One, it's a 10 times reduction in cost. That's what they estimate. Number two, remember NASA during the space race, they made it look like, no, we're going to get to the moon first, but reality is what they want to do is show the Soviets that we have the technology to put a man on the moon.
Yeah.
This could be a very cheap way to do an intercontinental.
We should call this the David, like David Goliath does this whole. Like,
oh wow, that's a great name.
Missed opportunity.
So this would be a great way to be like, we have intercontinental ballistic missiles that we could launch for hella cheap, and then we'll throw it at you.
Now is this all?
It'll fuck you up.
Is this all theoretic right now, or is it really possible that it can do this? Or I mean, have they proven they can do this, or is this just like a concept?
I think right now this is a concept, and they're like, oh, the physics, totally, work out. So I don't know.
Who would ever have thought? I mean, I would never have thought that would be a way to launch a freaking missile into space.
Yeah, why don't we just throw it?
Yes, just throw it, guys. We're way overthinking this.
But I mean, how awesome is that?
Yeah.
That's cool, man.
Yeah. You know what else is really awesome? I just saw this video. It was on ESPN. These kids were on a group chat call, and one of the kids was calling in one of his other buddies, and he was off by one number. And he called the DB from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they were in the locker room, and Tom Brady got on and everything, and it was just a couple of kids, some Michigan.
Is that a true story?
Yeah, it's a true story. They actually showed clips of it. The kid was, I mean, imagine that. You're on there with your like 5 friends, you're all high school buddies and stuff like that.
One of your idols answers the phone.
Yeah, and you go and you dial one of your friends, and because he accidentally misdialed by one number, and he landed on like the defensive back for the Buccaneers. They landed on
hit the lottery.
Yeah, hits his number. He answers it, and this kid is like live streaming into the Buccaneers locker room, and then Tom Brady comes over and says hi and stuff like that. Like, imagine being those kids.
Dude, that is so fun.
What a great day.
Hey, real quick, you know what I used to do? Because it's the holiday season. There used to be a phone number, probably exists, that you can call, and Santa Claus will answer the phone.
There's one for the Grinch too.
Okay, I used to threaten my kids with this. It was so effective. Like, oh, you want to act up? And I put my phone on speakerphone. I'd be like, I'm calling Santa. I'm sorry.
You know, you could send a letter to the post office and they'll write you back.
I know.
Yeah.
No, but the call is great, bro.
Yeah.
That's right. Wait, your son's a little older. And
does the call still exist? I mean, can you do it?
I think so. I don't know what it is.
I think it does. I forgot the number, but I used to call
I did it one time
Literally,
for my
my kids will
youngest.
freak out. No, Papa, please don't
Now,
call.
are you guys doing the elf on the shelf? Do you guys do that?
No.
Yeah, I'm still doing it. Like, so my youngest is still like, I believe in Santa, and the elf thing is still a part of that. And so I've like, it's so funny because every year you get worse and worse with the thing. Like,
He's
hey,
lazy.
He's here. He's like, I forgot.
By the way, I posted a meme that nobody figured out, so I'm just going to give it away and we'll
I had
show
him
it.
pooping M&M's today, just so you know.
Oh, did you really?
He's
All
like
brown?
sitting in his own little thing and just like drops of.
So I did a meme that nobody could figure out. We'll
M&Ms.
post it on the YouTube channel. Anyway, it's a picture of like an X-ray, and it shows like a pelvis, and then there's a planet, and everybody's like, "What is that?" It's Uranus in Uranus. So it says we have Elf on a Shelf, and then we have, and nobody guessed it. Everyone's like Jupiter.
I saw it too, and I didn't get it.
Uranus in
It's Uranus in
Uranus.
Uranus.
I saw that post. I was like, I don't get it. I have no idea what that is. It was like it looked like Saturn inside your stomach.
It's Uranus in Uranus.
Yeah, I didn't get it
There
at
you
all.
go.
It
That's
was
too
definitely
nerdy.
a dork. Yeah, that was definitely a nerd joke for sure.
That's why I liked it.
Yeah.
Hey, look, if you're into fitness, and I know you are because you watch and listen to this podcast, you probably want your kids to be healthy and fit as well. Well, we work with a company called Serenity Kids. They make baby food that is very healthy. It's nutrient dense, no sugary fruits, healthy fats, ethically sourced meats, bone broth, purees, there's grain-free puffs. It's meat and veggie pouches. Like, they have the best baby food. In fact, it's the only baby food that I feed my 1-year-old son. So if you're interested, you can head over to myserenitykids.com. That's MYSERENITY kids.com and use the code MP20 with no space for 20% off your first order. All right, here comes the rest of the show.
First question is from James Ayers 95. What are the best and worst exercises to do cheap reps on towards the end of your set?
Good old cheat reps. Cheat reps refer to the loosening up of form to get more repetitions done to improve the intensity of a particular set. It's a popular method bodybuilders have used for a long time. Now, here's my opinion on a cheat rep. I think first off, if you're going to do them, you need to be advanced. You have to have good control, be able to connect to the target muscle, but also realize that that exercises don't all have the same risk versus reward kind of ratio, right? Some exercises, if your form is off a little bit, you don't increase the risk that much. Other exercises, if the form is off a little bit, you dramatically increase the risk of injury. For example, Olympic lifts. Olympic lifts, if performed perfectly, are very safe. If your form is off a little bit, it really changes the risk of that exercise. Other compound lifts can be like that. Like a deadlift, you want to have really good form. If the deadlift is off by a little bit, the risk goes up quite a bit. Squat, overhead press, very similar. So I think the cheat reps should probably be relegated to kind of single joint exercises or exercises at least where the risk doesn't go up dramatically because you're loosening up the form.
Bicep curls, tricep push downs, lateral raises.
That's
What
basically
else?
it. Yeah.
Like I'm trying to think what else I have ever done like a cheat rep on. And you do a shoulder press, but that'd be considered a push press.
Yeah, it's a different exercise.
Right, so it's a different exercise.
And there's a whole technique to it.
Right. So those are the only three that I can think of where I have put body English on it to get it up.
To make it, I think that a better strategy, if you want to increase the intensity by doing more reps, would be rest pause. I think it's a little better because with rest pause, your
like
form
cluster sets.
Yeah. So so let's say you're doing a set and your form is perfect, and you're like, okay, this is it. Like one more rep and my form breaks down. Rather than doing a cheat rep, you put the bar down, you wait 15 seconds, and then do another rep. And there you're getting more reps, but the form remains, really good. It doesn't go bad.
This is such one of those novelty things that if you've
don't
worked
give a shit
out
about.
forever, it's just I will never do personally. But also, if I know that there's been, I guess there's proper criticism here for cheat reps within like the CrossFit world. So if you're doing kipping pull-ups, for instance, I would consider a cheat rep. That puts way too much stress on the shoulder joint specifically. That is problematic. And then also like a handstand push-up, I've seen them go down to the ground on a pad where their head gets to the pad, and then they kick their legs to add momentum for them to pushing up. And I get it. So this is where sort of that sport side of it pervades, and it sort of gets in the mix of like actual strength training. And so I have a big problem with that. But it's more of the compound lifts are the most problematic versus single rep, where you can have a lot more control, and it's really just about squeezing that last bit of pump instead of
you can lift the rest of your life and never do these.
You don't need to do them.
And when you think of all the different
and like think of the benefits,
yes,
like what extra benefits would you
when you
get?
think of all the different techniques and tools and ways to manipulate your training program,
I agree.
This arguably could be for sure close to dead last, if not dead last. There's just not a lot of other I can't think of a lot of things that are worse than this as far as the value of it that it adds, as far as different techniques. Not to mention that most people that probably do it shouldn't be doing it yet, because they still don't even have really great technique.
It's a great ego boost, isn't it? Like, I can do another 5 pounds, or I could do another repetition. I don't do cheat reps ever on purpose. Now, I might do them on accident if I'm in the gym and my ego kicks in and I want to hit an extra couple reps. And I'm sure if I watched a video of myself doing those dumbbell curls, I'd be like, oh, those are kind of a little loose. Or if I'm working out with my buddies and I want to add a little weight, but I don't do them on purpose anymore. I don't see tons of value. There's other ways to increase the intensity of an exercise. Going back to what you said about kipping pull-ups, Justin, that's a completely different exercise. That's a technique that gymnasts use.
Yeah.
Well, I just know because I've seen people actually try like strict pull-ups, and then as they get fatigued, start like swinging their body into it, which it's supposed to set you up and to get onto the rings, and so that it gives you that sort of transitionary move to do it, but they've turned it into an exercise.
Yeah, what you need to understand is if you are doing, let's say you're doing a set of squats and you're doing really good form, and then you go to the point where it's like technical failure, right? Your last rep is the last rep you could do with perfect form, but then you push past that and do like 3 more kind of crappy cheat reps, if you will. What happens is besides increasing the intensity, which we've already discussed, there's a lot of ways that are better to increase intensity that don't have to do with making your form worse. What you're literally doing is you're training your body to function in a less optimal way. In other words, whatever you train is what you strengthen. So if the last few reps of my set are bad form, I will actually become stronger and solidify that bad form recruitment pattern. So over time, this really can start to pose an issue with your technique and with how you lift. So I agree with you guys. I don't really see tons of value. And I did when I was a kid, because I was like, cool, I could do more weight.
Look at these last few reps I can get. But yeah, if you do it too often, it will become a pattern that's a bad pattern that is going to find its way into regular strength training.
Next question is from I Am Sofa King Awesome.
I love this person's name.
What are the most overrated supplements?
Didn't we do an episode dedicated to this?
I think we kind of
did.
We did, right? I think it was literally titled that too, wasn't it? Something like that?
I think we'd all agree BCAs. I mean, that we've talked about that.
That was in
quite a
there.
few times,
So I know that was one of the, I think we did 5. I want to say we did like the 5 most overrated supplements.
If
That's
you're
my
consuming
guess.
enough protein.
Branched chain amino acid supplements and essential amino acid supplements are valuable for specific types of people who don't eat a high protein diet can gain some value from them. So if you eat, if you're eating 50 grams of protein a day and you work out and you supplement with branched amino acids, you will get better recovery, better muscle growth, all that stuff. But if you just eat more protein, you'll get that benefit and then some. If you're eating a high protein diet, it's literally, you know what it is? I actually saw a meme that really illustrated this well. There was a guy that was outside, it was raining, and then he had a water hose and he was washing his car.
Yeah.
And it was like, that's what branched amino acids are like, right? It's like it's raining and you're
for so
throwing
many things.
extra water.
Oh, no, I've seen the water polo one. The guy's treading water and he's got a water bottle. He's dumping water bottle on his head.
Yeah. So I would say that's got to be up there. And and again, I see value in specific types of people. I would recommend it to clients who eat really low protein diets, but nobody else really benefits from
I would put fat burners in there. So I would put most of fat, not all. I can't think of any fat burners that I wouldn't put on there.
They don't burn fat.
That's right. That's why I think
they might make you eat less because they suppress your appetite for a short period of time, but they don't burn body fat. They're fun.
So any fat burner would go on there. BCAAs would go on there. What else do we have on that list that I can't recall what the 5 were. I know we had 5 on there.
Yeah, there's a lot of every year, right? New supplements come out and they promise the latest and greatest. Whatever.
I mean, the truth is,
most supplements are overrated.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, you know what? Even the best supplements. Okay, we talk about how great creatine is. We know the value of protein if you're under consuming. At the end of the day, I mean, our goal should always be to get most, if not all, the things you need through whole foods. And where I see the most value in supplements is to supplement those needs when you can't hit them. So if you're under consuming protein, then protein powder is extremely valuable.
Right.
I mean, very, very valuable. But it's even more valuable to get it through whole foods. So if you can get it through whole foods and not use any protein powder, you're winning even more. So, the supplements are such a small percentage of the benefits that you get from training and dieting.
Yeah,
correctly.
I guess too. I mean, there's ones that are just specifically trying to target, like for pre-workouts or like no explode or like the NO2 like portion to get you a better pump. Whereas you could just drink a lot more water and you'd probably be doing just fine going in that direction versus like adding citrulline and all these other things that have value, but in terms of it stacking up against just like making sure you're properly hydrated, I would think it falls a little bit in comparison.
So there's the 5 we listed before. So we listed branched chain amino acids, fat burners, nitric oxide boosters, to your point right there, Justin, testosterone boosters, and collagen. And so the case was on the testosterone boosters were if in the context of you having,
low testosterone,
like really low testosterone.
Some of them will show it.
Then a booster can kind of bring you up to a higher, more normal level. But if you were like I was, a 17-year-old kid who's got probably testosterone through the roof when I was trying these things, they're absolutely worthless. It's
also, the effect seems to be temporary for testosterone boosters in that case. You start to see kind of this losing effect. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of like you have a car and you put a new air filter on it. So does the air filter do something? Well, yeah, maybe increase a little airflow. Is it going to give you like 5 more horsepower? No. It's not going to give you 5 more. You might sound a little better, might make it a little bit more efficient.
Well, they say it gives you like 15 more horsepower.
Yeah, I mean, okay. Have you ever put an air filter, go measure your quarter mile, put it out, is there going to be a drastic difference? Probably not. Creatine, the most effective supplement that's out there, is going to add like a few reps to your lifts. You might add 5 pounds to some of your lifts. Does it compare? And creatine is by far one of the most effective supplements that out there. Just to give you an idea of how big of how overrated most supplements are. I think most people think that supplements are like 30% of their success when it's more like 5% or less of their success. So, I mean, and that's just the truth. Like, it doesn't make that big of a difference, especially if everything else is off. Like, if your training sucks, take all the supplements you want. It's not going to do anything for you. It doesn't make that big of a difference. So, aside from maybe filling some nutrient deficiencies where I could see a lot of value, I don't see a huge amount of value for most of them.
The other one that we talked about was collagen protein, which I think that if you're getting your protein intake, then it's all protein powders are worthless if you're hitting your protein intake. And then collagen, I think pulling it out to just collagen protein, if you're taking something like whey protein, it's superior than that. We've already talked about the studies that support whey protein being more valuable.
If your protein is low and you supplement with protein, you'll notice a difference. Collagen or whey or any other protein, and some of them are a little different. Like collagen, you will notice more nail growth and hair growth just because of the amino acid profile. But if your protein intake's high, you've got enough of all the amino acids and the benefits that they'll all provide.
Well, I've noticed that gain more popular, like in the wellness world, especially and with women.
That's
like
what the hair, the nails, the skin.
Right, it's the hair, nail, skin angle that they're trying to use as like a beauty.
Well, along those lines, think of the average female client that you had, not the fitness fanatic. The average female client, they don't eat enough protein.
So they notice
supplement
it. So they do it. They oh my God, it worked. That's why it's gotten so popular.
They
because
pin it to those.
There's someone listening right now. 100%. We have enough people that listen. That they use collagen and they probably swear by it because
my skin, my hair, my nails.
Because someone told them to take it. They started taking it and they noticed those things improve. The thing that I would say back to them is, I guarantee if you got rid of your collagen protein powder and you replaced it with whey, you would get the same benefits. So, or if you just made sure you hit your protein intake,
That's the one.
Yep.
every day through Whole Foods, you would notice the same benefits. There's nothing magical about collagen because it's marketed that way. It's marketed like it's doing something magical for the hair, skin, and nails. But in reality, it's just that you just took somebody who was probably only averaging 30 to 50 grams of protein a day, and you just boosted them to 80 to 90.
And
where
to their defense, it is, look, if they're not willing to eat more protein, they're not willing to make any other changes except for taking some collagen protein every day, and they're noticing health improvements. To their defense, I guess there is value because of the convenience and stuff. But I think that the real question is, how valuable are these things in comparison to what they're trying to replace or supplement? And in that context, they're not, right? Protein powders are great when you can't get enough protein from your diet. In comparison to getting protein in your diet, protein powders are a waste of money. So that's, I think, the big point with most of the stuff.
Next question is from Thabish K. Which grip is the best and safest for deadlifts?
Yeah, this is a good question. It's funny. Okay, so the most popular one, you'll see this over-under grip, right, when you deadlift. So one hand is supinated, palm facing back, the other one's palm facing up. And what that does, it allows you to hold on to a lot more weight because the bar doesn't roll out of your hand necessarily. Here's the issue with that. And that was a lift that was created by strongmen just to get the bar off the ground. And powerlifting obviously allows you to use a mixed grip. Here's the problem with it. If you're not diligent about switching which hand goes supinated and pronated with every single set, you will develop an imbalance like I did. I developed an imbalance. I deadlifted for years with the switch grip, and I would always, when I go on my heaviest sets, I would always pick the one I was strongest in. And sure enough, I could see a difference in development between my right and my left side. And still today, I still have a slight discrepancy, even though I've now switched to a hook grip so that both hands are facing forward. So now I don't have to do this switch. So if you use a switch grip, you better go back and forth with every single set and make sure you're even, because it does change. I mean, one is supinated, so one your humerus is externally rotated. The one it's rotated inward a little bit, and that's going to change the recruitment pattern a bit. And you will see over time just imbalance between the two sides.
I noticed I would get the hand that was supinated, so the one with the palm up, right? When I was doing the same thing, I was getting issues in my elbow and my shoulder on that side. So that side, I would see problems, where the other side, I wouldn't see any problems. So I went back to doing just double over. And what I just started doing was, like, if I couldn't pick it up that way, I just stopped picking it up.
Yeah.
Like I went through that kick with you for a little bit where I was trying to chase a number, but if I'm not chasing something, like I'm not competing.
Do you use a hook grip at all, or just
no? I try to go. When you went on the kick for the hook grip and we started doing it. For a while there, I was trying to play with it. I was so bad at it. It was awful. I couldn't get.
Hurt your hands a little bit.
Yeah, I couldn't get it. I don't know what it is. My technique sucks. I didn't care enough to be that consistently deadlifting with a hook grip to get good at it. You know what I'm saying? If it was something,
it does hurt your hand. It takes a while.
Yeah, that's just it. I wasn't deadlifting enough consistently to get to the place where I'd get good at it. It's just fuck it. I'll just do double over, and then. If I can't lift that weight, I can't lift that weight. I need to get stronger.
I think if I were training clients now, I would, and I was getting to the point where they were getting strong enough to where their grip would give out, I would teach the hook grip over the switch grip, the over-under grip, because I've seen it way too many times where you start to favor a side, and it does create an imbalance. And yes, I know in powerlifting competitions they don't care. You just got to get the weight up. But if you're training your body, you got to train it balanced. And small changes is like one hand supinated, one hand pronated, definitely makes a difference. And a hook grip does take time to get used to. It does take time to get used to. It does hurt your thumb. It's not without its own issues. I know people have had thumb issues as a result of doing that, but at least it's balanced. You know what I mean? At least both hands are
I try to switch every set, but that's just because. Does anybody even do like a double supinated grip? I don't think I've ever seen that. But yeah, I do try and start out as heavy as I can go, double overhand, and then I just switch after every set just to make sure I don't have those
I go chalk
imbalances.
and hook grip. Chalk and hook grip, and you should be able to go pretty far if you get good with it. Otherwise, I guess you can use wrist wraps. As much as I hate recommending that, I guess you could, right? Use wrist wraps if you can't hold onto the bar. But that does also disengage the hands a little bit, and I think it's important to develop the strength of the grip.
Next question is from Pizza Kun. How does lack of sleep affect performance in the gym? Does it affect pumps?
Negatively.
Oh man, I can't think of anything that would negatively affect performance faster than lack of sleep.
Well, maybe just chronic low calorie.
No.
Chronic low calorie long enough.
Not faster. Like, imagine if you ate no calories one day, how much that would affect your performance. Now imagine if I had no sleep one night. Like, the sleep really messes up performance. It puts you in, the thing with lack of sleep is it is such a stress signal to the body because for most of human history, the only time you would not sleep at all at night is if you were in danger or scared or, in a really bad situation. And what your body does in that case is it ramps up stress hormones, ramps up catecholamine production, changes hormones, and really doesn't care about the long term because your body perceives the immediate threat to be something that needs to be handled right away. You can forget about your body adapting and building muscle and doing all that stuff in that particular space. Lack of sleep, they've done studies on lack of sleep, and they can induce psychosis in people. I don't remember what the time frame, in a very short period of time.
Something, yeah.
It's like 3 days. People, like a majority of them start to go crazy.
What about the pump though? Is there anything? Is there a direct mechanism that is affected by that? I don't think so.
I don't know about the direct mechanism. I mean, if blood vessels are gonna be more constricted, you're more stressed. You're probably gonna get less blood flow. For me, it does.
Yeah, cortisol would that affect it in any way? I don't know if it would or not. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's more.
I mean, the fact that it affects the overall workout means it would affect the pump, indirectly. But I don't think there's a direct.
I feel it more from the
connection.
central nervous system. Like, I just don't have access to that type of like force production. It's just like it is so much more fight within what would normally be something I'd have access to if I'm lacking sleep. It just feels like my body like wants to just shut down, and so I lackluster go through those types of exercises.
Now, have you guys had though examples of like when you were really exhausted, you probably should have took the day off of working out, you ramped up on some pre-workout and you did it anyway.
You're just full of adrenaline,
and then you had like the best workout of your life though.
Yeah,
that's because you're
very occasionally.
Yeah, you got fight or flight kicking in.
Yeah,
right. I mean, so I think that's why this, I think sometimes is tough for people to like read or know what they should or should not do, because most people that have been lifting for a long time can recall something like that too, where they're like, I don't know what these guys are talking about because I hit a PR on a day where I only got 2 hours of sleep and I went and did this and this is how I felt. And like, so I don't believe that bullshit. And I know that I was in that camp in my 20s because I knew that I could draw back to times where I had incredible workouts where I pushed through.
You see athletes like on, benders on cocaine for a few days and then they like pitch a no-hitter.
Yeah.
You're like, what the hell?
Yeah, I think
How'd you do that?
That was LSD too, right? Was it
LSD too.
Yeah, this was the last piece of the puzzle that I put together. It took me a long time to figure out workouts. Nutrition probably was next. Sleep took me a long time because humans in general are remarkably good at coping with lack of sleep. Yeah. Like, we could get by and we have caffeine and stimulants and, we don't notice. We can, like I said, we can get by. And especially when you're young, man, my motto, literally, I used to say this, it's so stupid. I used to literally say this in my sales meetings. I'll sleep when I die. I used to tell people this all the time. I don't need sleep. Sleep's for weak people. And I would sleep 5 hours a night. That was my average. And I would just go and go and go and wonder why I got, would get ill and stuff like that. But it took me a long time to piece that together. Now, once you piece it together, the contrast is dramatic. Like, go for, even just do like 6.5 hours of sleep versus 7.5 hours. And do the comparison, and you'll see that it's a huge difference.
Well, I think because of the adrenaline, in the isolated situation, sometimes you might have this example of where it was great for you, but overall, I think the compounding effect of poor sleep and training, I think it starts to take a toll and add up.
Yeah, you know where this really becomes obvious? When you have your first baby.
Oh man!
Because your sleep, when you're in your 20s, you're sleep deprived for like a weekend.
Yeah, but you know what though? To that point again, I was on a little bit of a high.
I remember
a couple weeks after that.
I remember
talking shit about it.
You were coming how easy it was.
Yeah,
Justin
like,
and I
feel
like,
good. Some of my best workouts have been these last couple weeks like that. But guess what? It eventually catches up.
Yeah, that's why.
So at that that's what I mean by that. It's like, in an isolated event where it's just maybe one or even a handful or maybe like something like that.
Up on adrenaline.
Yeah, I mean, I just had a child, probably one of the most amazing experiences of my life, right?
But 2 weeks later, and it turns into 2 months, 3 months.
That's right.
You're like, okay, this is a whole different ballgame.
But I think that's the part though, I think that throws people off when you talk about that, or even threw me off as a young fitness trainer, like thinking that sleep's overrated. Because I used to say that, sleep's overrated, because I can power through, I can get through it, I'm fine. But not realizing, man, when you optimize your sleep, how much, and I think that's the better thing to focus on. Not could I survive or get a good single workout on a lack of sleep. It's what happens.
Other side look like?
What happens when I truly dedicate myself to a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks of consistent going to bed at like a really early time for myself, or preparing myself for bed and getting good sleep and diet. Then I think that's the better thing to teach people, is like, instead of saying, oh, it doesn't affect me that much, or, oh, I've had bad sleep and had my best workouts, forget looking at it like that. How about, have you ever actually made an effort to get great sleep consistently for a period of time to actually see how much it benefits
That's
you?
a great point, because the challenge with this is that I think people are in such a chronic state of poor sleep for so long, they don't know what they don't know. Yeah. It's like that.
They've never experienced it.
Yeah, it's like that story, like the man that was born with one eye sewn shut, and everybody tells him, you open your eye, and he's like, I see just fine. And then finally, when they open it, he's like, oh my God, I can't believe what I was missing. I have a buddy who just was always chronically tired. He would just, he would always have to have caffeine. He would nod off in meetings and just whatever. He just thought this is just how it was. Well, anyway, when he got, he had this girlfriend that moved in with him, and she was like, do you know that you like stop breathing when you're sleeping and you choke and all that stuff?
He had apnea, yeah.
He had sleep apnea, did the sleep test, got put on the, what is it called? The CPAP machine. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I had no idea how big of a difference it would make. He's like, it's a game changer. But he didn't know because he had nothing to compare it to. So, what Adam said, I think is exactly right. Like, make an effort to do this for a week so you have a contrast. Otherwise, it's like water. How many times you get clients like, oh, you need to drink more water.
Yeah,
I'm fine. And then when they finally do, they're like, I had no idea how much better I would feel from drinking more water. It's really no different than that. Look, if you like our information, head over to mindpumpfree.com and check out all of our fitness and health guides. We have tons of guides that can help you with all of your fitness goals. You can also find all of us on social media. So Justin is at Mind Pump Justin, I'm at Mind Pump Sal, and Adam is at Mind Pump Adam.